Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, Joe Biden is calling on Americans to turn in their friends and family to the federal government. I'll have more on that in just a second. Up next, Joe Biden continues to fail in his attempt to interact with foreign nations. It was pretty much a disaster at the G7. And finally, Andy Mangione, Senior Vice President of AMAC Action, is here to talk to us about Vladimir Putin and the meeting that he had with Joe Biden. But a quick reminder, if you haven't shared this video, make sure you hit that share button right now. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. As if the division in our country wasn't extreme enough, the Biden administration made the decision to actually pin friends and family members against one another. That's right. This all goes back to the Biden belief that so-called white supremacy is the greatest terrorism threat both in our country and now around the world. Take a listen to what Attorney General Garland had to say about this on Tuesday.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
That's right. You all need to lose your minds right now because the most dangerous threat in the United States of America is the surge of white supremacy. All white people apparently are now your threat to you and your democracy. Now, don't worry, because Biden actually has a plan to fix all of this. In fact, he put out a 4-part plan, so you know it's really good. According to the administration, the first part seeks to, quote, understand and analyze and share domestic terrorism-related information. So in translation, the entire point of the first part is to encourage you to actually turn in your friends and your family members to the government if you suspect that they might be a white supremacist and could at some point, not actually right now, but at some point could act violently. An official within the Biden administration pointed to the Department of Homeland Security's See Something, Say Something campaign that was intended to help stop radical Islamic terror as a domestic possibility in the U.S. The official also said, and I quote, "This involves creating context in which those who are family members or friends or co-workers know that there are pathways and avenues to raise concerns and seek help for those who they have perceived to be radicalized and potentially radicalized towards violence." This all stems from Biden's inauguration speech where he said this:
"A rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat."
For a president that said he wanted to bring America together, it doesn't really seem like he wants to do that anymore. The question each and every person should be asking themselves is this: what is the new definition of a radicalized white person? If you voted for Donald Trump, can someone turn you in? If you're a Republican, can someone turn you in? If you're an evangelical Christian, can a coworker or a family member turn you in because they don't like your religion and they think that you can be radicalized and maybe some point down the road become violent? The point is this: this administration is clearly trying to divide this country more than ever before. The fact that they're even advocating for wanting Americans to turn one another against one another and to turn people in, all based on the color of someone's skin, rather than bring us together, is a terrible idea. We have to stop this, or else it is going to destroy this great nation. And men and women on both sides of the aisle in Washington need to stand up to power, stand up to the President of the United States of America and say, no, we are not going to do this in the United States of America. So many Americans, for that matter, many world leaders are trying to figure out what is the strategy of Joe Biden in this administration. Even Democrats in Congress can't figure out which Joe Biden is going to show up to meet with which world leaders. Now, Biden went into the G7 wanting to talk tough against Vladimir Putin. In fact, Biden said this prior to his one-on-one meeting with the Russian leader. Take a look.
Are you ready for
Now, while tough Joe Biden claims he's, quote, always ready, even though he's clearly not, Vladimir Putin had a different view on the current president. Take a look.
Well, even now, I believe that former U.S. President, Mr. Trump, is an extraordinary individual, talented individual. Otherwise, he would not have become U.S. President. He's a colorful individual. You may like him or not. But he didn't come from the U.S. establishment. He had not been part of big-time politics before. And some like it, some don't like it. But that is a fact. President Biden, of course, is radically different from Trump because President Biden is a career man. He has spent virtually his entire adulthood in politics. Just think of the number of years he spent in the Senate. A different kind of person. And it is my great hope that, yes, there are some advantages, some disadvantages, but there will not be any impulse-based movements on behalf of the sitting U.S. president.
One thing you have to admit about Vladimir Putin is he is showing his cards to the world. Vladimir Putin doesn't feel any challenge from Joe Biden. In fact, later in that same interview, Putin added to his comparison of Biden the image of a political, quote, career man, prone to hollowing, macho posturing. This all goes back to Biden calling Putin a, quote, killer just last year when he was trying to become president. However, Putin's point about Biden was proven when Biden responded to a question about his killer comment just this week. Take a look at Mr. Tough Guy claiming he's going to be tough on Russia, turning and running from that quote from just a year ago.
Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer?
I'm laughing too. Well, look, I mean, he has made clear that the answer is, I believe he has in the past essentially acknowledged that he was, there are certain things that he would do or did do.
The scary part about the clip that you just watched is the fact that it actually took 25 seconds for the President of the United States of America to say absolutely nothing at all. Instead of pushing forward on his previous description of Putin, which is accurate, he decided to clumsily walk that back this week in the name of protecting his, quote, relationships with the rest of the world. After being called a career man by Putin, Biden actually called Putin a, quote, worthy adversary. Yeah, that's not good for America's interests. Biden's mistakes during the NATO summit didn't stop there. He also decided to air political laundry for all the world to see, dirty laundry at that. He did this by blasting former President Trump and Republicans during a press conference following the summit that literally had nothing to do with Donald Trump. He actually had a flashcard, by the way, that the media took a picture of, and there's video of this out there, covered with anti-Trump talking points that he used during a press conference in England on Sunday. Just take a look at this report from OAN.
Joe Biden fiddles with a flashcard of anti-Trump talking points during a press conference in England. Biden brandishing the card labeled DOJ talking points while speaking Sunday in Cornwall. The cards include a number of pre-planned answers. That's including a claim that Trump, quote, abused power and that his Justice Department was out of control.
Yes, it is unprecedented for the President of the United States of America to have flashcards. And yes, it is unprecedented for those flashcards to attack their predecessor when they're the current President of the United States of America in front of the world. Look, we've always attempted to look united as a country, but Biden is so focused on attacking Donald Trump, the low-hanging fruit, a guy that's no longer the president, that he was willing to break precedent by slamming an opposing political party from his own country on the world stage. Now, our current president cheers on dangerous countries like Russia while slamming Americans, including the former president, on the foreign stage. This is what will continue to happen if we don't speak up and say this is unacceptable. Now, at AMAC, we will make sure that this White House understands that their job is not to attack half of the American public that voted for Donald Trump when they're overseas. Their job is to represent all of our interests with foreign powers, many of them who actually are acting right now like they're our enemies. It was a big foreign trip for Joe Biden and his entire foreign policy team. And they're coming back to America with a total disaster on their hands. He looked weak, so how bad was it? Joining me now to talk about this, we have AMAC Action Senior Vice President Andy Mangione. Andy, there's no other way to look at this. And even the U.S. media has had to be honest about just how bad this trip was. And bad, when I say bad, what I mean is it's clear that America is not strong, that our president is extremely weak, and world leaders are about to take huge advantage of this. Your reaction?
Well, Ben, we've documented the disaster that this trip has been, starting with the G7 meeting in a wonderful comprehensive article on our website on amac.us. But we've been watching this very closely, starting with the G7 meeting, and frankly, we're shocked. We're shocked at how Biden has treated our long-term friendly ally, the United Kingdom. He decided to jump into the Brexit negotiations, first by publicly rebuking the United Kingdom for the protocol in establishing a trade border with Northern Ireland as part of the Brexit deal. Now, let's contrast this with what former President Trump has done. President Trump took an independent approach to the European Union and attempted to serve as a mediator between the United Kingdom and the European Union over Brexit. President Biden instead has appeared to abandon this approach and side with the European Union at the expense of our relationship with the United Kingdom. The public reprimand that Biden gave can be viewed as an insult to a loyal ally who has a long and storied history of standing by the United States across the globe.
This was also a test, I think, very clearly for this relationship this president was going to have dealing with adversaries. I'm talking about directly Vladimir Putin. You look at the disaster of this meeting with Putin. Even Putin walked out of this meeting and they wouldn't even have a joint press conference. That was being done on purpose by the White House to protect Biden, I think, from looking weak and also falling into some of the traps that could be set and the world to see it by Vladimir Putin. They're clearly playing defense from a PR standpoint. But Vladimir Putin walks out of that meeting and says, oh, this is, we had a great meeting. Well, great means they ate our lunch, right? If we would have stood up to them on cybersecurity issues, on all of the problems that we're having in them, specifically with the pipeline being shut down, they knew about these terrorists, and I call them terrorists because that's what they are, terrorizing our infrastructure via the internet. And we also know that they are on the verge, it looks like, of possibly taking over Ukraine again and invading that country as we turn not one but two of our boats around from actually going over there. Yes, we threw out 10 of their diplomats, but this was clearly a test by Putin to see just how weak Joe Biden is. And I think he walks away from this meeting thinking we can pretty much do whatever the hell we want in the world right now.
When they want to. They could do whatever they want when they want to. President Biden looking strong, well, that ship has sailed, Ben. This was a weak performance, and probably one of the most weakest performances by an American president overseas in recent memory. And you could tell by the smirk on Vladimir Putin's face as he stood next to President Biden as to who had the upper hand in these discussions.
Yeah, that moment you're talking about when the two men were sitting in the room and the press was coming in and being manhandled by what I call them the KGB, right? The security of Vladimir Putin. But there was a moment there that stands out, and everybody should make sure they take a look at this, where you have the President of the United States of America reaching over, trying to grab his Cliff Notes for a moment that Cliff Notes should never be needed. It's a moment where the media comes in and takes a picture. And there was almost this moment of just shock as Putin looks over like, are you kidding me? You're going to need notes for this? And then there was that grin, like checkmate, like I'm in charge, game over. We can do whatever we want to do, including the biggest military war games that Russia has done since the end of the Cold War, just 300 miles off the coast of Hawaii. That's something a lot of people have not even seen the media cover. They did that moments before the meeting took place.
Ben, the optics couldn't have been worse, but the optics are the least of our problems. This is scary stuff. The Russians have been massing troops on the Ukrainian border, and we could all surmise and perhaps forecast what's going to happen next.
Andy, I appreciate your time and coming on. We're going to be following this. Make sure you go to the AMAC website and take a look at this incredible article about the disaster that was this G7 summit and also what happened with Putin after that. Thanks so much for your time. We'll have you back again real soon.
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you.
That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. Most importantly, please share this right now with your family and friends on social media so more people can see AMAC Weekly News. Also, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your AMAC membership, now is the time to do it so you can continue to receive this show and access to our incredible member benefits, especially as the country starts to reopen. You'll also get the AMAC magazine, which has become an incredible magazine with deep, in-depth reporting on important issues that affect you and your family. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.